Today on Locked On Red Wings, we're going to do a mailbag answering your questions that you sent to us on social media.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as freelance journalist for the Detroit News as well. Scotty, by the time this airs, your Tigers, not the Tigers, the Tigers will officially be back in business as they come back on Friday. You excited, buddy?
I'm very excited. It's been a long week for sure. Not any shortage of stuff to talk about. The MLB draft, All-Star break, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of news coming out of Tigers camp. We only got a week and a half till the trade deadline. Plenty of stuff to talk about, but yeah, excited for the boys to be playing ball again for sure.
Scooble rumors as well, which I'm sure
I actually addressed that on Wednesday's show. For the first time, really broke it down. We'll talk about it about 8 more times between now and the deadline. So
July 31st, right?
July 31st.
Look at that. I knew that off the top of my head. Pretty proud of myself. Been pretty,
good job, man.
Pretty,
it hasn't
been a pretty
changed
faithful...
ever, so good job. Actually, that's not true. It was August 1st for a couple of years for some weird reason.
Get wrecked. Thanks for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every single day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you guys don't know, it cut there because I messed it up the first time, and that's why I'm laughing through it now. The second time.
We're really crushing this thing to start out.
Well, it's a mailbag episode, and today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. It's a mailbag episode. It's a Friday. This is the last. Well, actually, we only did 3 episodes this week, so really, we're kind of already in the off-season mode because we're probably going to take a day off in the last 2 weeks of July, and then we'll be at 3 days a week in August. So our episode flow will slow down to 4, then 3 until about first or second week of September. Then we'll come back in full.
September.
But Scotty, we're going to do a mailbag today. Let's answer the very first question because we have a lot to get to. The first question here comes from Ace Fishing 1660 on YouTube. Outside of the 2, Johansson and Berggren, which one will likely make the team and which one gets waived? Outside of a great training camp, I don't see both of them making it. I haven't seen Johansson enough to say he'll make the roster. Berggren's been here already and lit up the AHL last season. I'm just going to call him Ace. I actually think both are going to make the roster, because if you put any of them on waivers, because they're no longer waiver exempt, they will get claimed off waivers. So barring a trade prior to training camp that will ship 1 or 2 out, there is probably going to be a roster spot for one, if not both of them. Obviously, Johansson's going to have to beat out Lagesson. That is true. The reason you sign a guy like Lagesson, who played 40 games in the NHL last season, is to give Albert Johansson competition to earn his roster spot. But I think Albert Johansson can and will. I think he's NHL ready. Jonathan Berggren as well. There's a roster spot available for him. There is very much a pathway for both of those guys to make it to the NHL. And if they don't, they won't be Red Wings anymore because I don't see both of those guys clearing. Yzerman said he doesn't see both of those guys clearing at the end of season of media availability. So Ace, actually, it's both. I really do think it's both of those guys who are going to be on the NHL roster next year. I think Albert Johansson may be your 6th or 7th D-man. He can play both left and right side. Last year with the Grand Rapids Griffins, he was phenomenal because he can play both left and right. He played up and down the lineup when Simon Edvinsson got hurt. He played top pair on the left side because he's a left shot D-man. He's very good, and he's a very good puck-moving defenseman as well. So don't just because he doesn't accrue a lot of points doesn't mean he's not a good D-man. He's a very responsible defenseman, and you'll like him at the NHL level as a depth defender. Berggren, you know what he is. He'll probably be a 3rd or 4th line winger, power play specialist. He's your Daniel Sprong replacement. He's going to score goals, but not play very well defensively. I think they're both got a spot on the NHL roster if they earn it, but as the roster is constructed right now, I don't see them not earning a spot.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've been talking about for weeks now how we expect both to make the roster. However, I do think that this is maybe a better point than I had originally thought. Now, again, I still fully expect both to make it. However, I do think that just with the weird way the roster is constructed, it's not impossible for this to happen, right? If if Berger just looks the exact same and they're like, you know what, defensive liability, maybe he hasn't taken another step forward, he's low-key getting up there in age, like et cetera, then maybe that. Again, currently they have, 8 defensemen? Like, you could run a fourth pair out there at this point. So, like, again, I'm with you. I don't want to just keep talking in circles and reiterate your point. I agree with you. We fully expect both to make the roster. But I also don't think it's like some 100% guarantee and just some foregone conclusion either. I do think that, to your point and the ace, is that the commenter's point,
Ace.
that they're going to have to earn it a little bit. But I expect both. But I do think that that's an interesting point to bring up for sure.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the next one, too, because it's kind of along the same vein. There's a lot of questions about youth in this mailbag from what I could gather. I like this one, too, because this one comes from Lord of Venom on YouTube. I love YouTube usernames. A lot of them are just, like, old from when we were kids, and then YouTube changed their policy, so now everyone's username just is
Yours
exposed.
is some weird anime name that no one
knows.
knows
Actually,
about.
well, I'm not going to out myself here on what my personal one is.
Oh, that was close. I almost got him, everyone. I almost got him.
It actually has to do with a youth hockey team name. But Lord Venom 2176 on YouTube says, so to make room for some of the kids, can the Wings put Petrie and Hull on waivers? If so, would it really be that big of a loss if someone actually picked them up? It would free up cap space and spots for the kids to play. Now, Scotty, I'm going to let you go first on this one.
Yeah, well, somebody's got to pick them up.
Right.
And the thing with waivers is if you put someone on waivers and the other team picks it up, they have to take on the new salary. And no one is going to take Justin Hull's salary. I really don't think Petrie would, get picked up either. So, from where I stand, I think that you're quote unquote stuck with both of these guys going into the season. And I actually think Petrie, like we've talked about before, is probably going to be the second pair defenseman next to Edvinsson. But in terms of can you put them on waivers and another team can take them off your hands? I genuinely think their performance / contract situation is so poor that specifically with Hull, I guess Petrie's a little bit more of a maybe, but like with Hull, I just that's not going to accomplish anything. He's going to clear, and then you're just going to be in the same situation that you were already in. You're still going to be paying that money, and he's not going to go down to like the AHL at the current state of his career. So like you'd still just be right back where you started.
Well, and here's the thing too, right? Like, yes, theoretically, you could waive those guys. Nobody would pick them up. Like at Petrie at 2.5, no one's grabbing him. Hull at 3.15, no one's grabbing him. Actually, I could see a team picking up Petrie. He's not as bad as Red Wings fans think he is. He's fine as a third pair role, and 2.5 for one more year is not horrible for a bottom feeder team that needs a veteran leader in the locker room. But I still don't think that it's happening because you also take on that modified no trade clause, and he doesn't want to go there. Didn't stop the Sharks from taking up Barclay Goodrow, who didn't want to go to San Jose. But my point still remains, I don't see a world where either of those guys realistically get put up or picked up, rather. And then you have to keep in mind, too, and I actually didn't know the answer to this. Full credit to Max Bultman of The Athletic. I had to give him a text, and I was like, hey, if these guys clear waivers and they get sent down to the minors, how much cap relief do they really get? And I don't know the bar in how long. There is at some point, a NHL player becomes tenured enough that you don't get a lot of cap relief for them if they go down the minors. And both Petrie and Hull are past those thresholds, and the cap relief if they go down to the minors is only $1.15 million. So you'd only save $1.15 million on the cap if either of those guys go down to the minors. So then at that point, you would have you'd be paying Hull $2 million to play with the Griffins, and Petrie $1.5 million to play with the Griffins. And again, as you said, it's not a perfect world. In a perfect world, Petrie wouldn't be your second side right D, your second pair right D, but he's your best option on that pair at the moment on that side. So it doesn't make sense for them to waive him. Hull, I would have loved if they got offloaded him this offseason if they didn't have plans to utilize him. And we've had talks on end about that. But it also doesn't make sense for them to waive him because no one's going to pick him up and you're not going to get a ton of cap space for him. Theoretically, though, you could do it and it would make room for it. But you'd have to have Antetokounmpo really show out in training camp to really make it over top of one of those guys for them to have to waive one of those guys, and I just don't.
Also,
I don't see that happening.
In general, you go tell a veteran you signed to a fully guaranteed NHL contract who's going to go play in the A. Like you let me know how that goes. That's not a common practice for a reason.
There's the reason why the buried cap rule, because that's what this is about, is the buried cap rule is a thing, is because players who had tenure at the NHL level didn't like getting buried in the minors just for the cap relief. Like this is built into the CBA because it rubbed players the wrong way and agents the wrong way. So yeah, you do that. That's not going to just hurt the feelings of that one player. That's going to ripple, and players and free agency are going to hear that, and that's going to ruin a little bit of your credibility. Now, if you're a winner, like the Vegas Golden Knights are, not to say that they have done exactly this, but they have a bad track record of taking care of their star players. The whole Marc-Andre Fleury sword in his back tweet, right, from his agent. But if you win, people often forgive that to become winners. Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots is another great example of an organization that didn't give two craps about throwing their players away the second they became useless, even if they brought them success. But the Red Wings right now haven't had a whole heck of a lot of success, and if you want to build that success, you want to build really good player relationships, and waiving a guy like that's not a great idea. That being said, there are still opportunities for young guys to make the roster that doesn't include waiving Petrie and Hull. We have more questions about the youth. We have about 2 more. About half of our questions are about the youth, which I love to see. That's what people are excited about, and that's awesome. We'll get to those in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are doing a mailbag episode, and let's just keep the youth questions running because they just naturally flow into one another. This one is the final one about skaters, and the final one is about the goalie situation. This one's also on YouTube, courtesy of Andrew Lindemann 9725. So, from multiple videos I've watched about the Wings this offseason, most of them really only have one rookie joining the team, Berggren. Kind of circling back to Ace's question about Berggren or Johansson, where we both stand again. I think both can make the team. I think that's still a possibility. There's also difference between
making the team and being in the starting lineup. We did not have Johansson in our starting lineup. We had him as a healthy.
Yeah, a 7th D-man. And so the question is a 2-part question. If you had to guess, how many rookies do you think will make their debut, and who do you think it will be? So that's a really good question. I think realistically, depends on your definition of rookie.
On opening night or throughout the season, you think?
I would guess on opening night is what I inferred from this question. It depends on your definition of rookie. If you want to go true definition of rookie, I would say 1 is the realistic choice, and that's Albert Johansson. Yeah. Functionally, 2 with Simon Edvinsson. Fun fact, Simon Edvinsson is not technically an NHL rookie anymore, because to start your sophomore season to no longer be considered a rookie,
he said
you either have to play.
So that cuts through all of that, right? Just purely how many Wings do we think are going to make their debut on opening night? I think it's probably 1. The outside chance, and it's Johansson, and the outside chance of 2 would only be if Casper really lit it up. I think really outside of that, I would love to see Danielson make a push for the team. I don't think that that's happening on opening night, though. I don't think Casper is going to make the team on opening night either. Throughout the course of the season, that's different. I think we both kind of expect Casper to get a cup of coffee at a minimum at the NHL level at some point this season. Depending on how Danielson plays, that's obviously in there. Actually, I'm lying. I'm pretty sure Carter Mazer is probably
I was going to say, I wanted you to
really
finish,
big
but I was
one
going to say.
that I just completely omitted there. He's honestly, I would say he has a higher chance than maybe Casper and Danielson just from a organizational fit perspective on opening night. So yeah, I'd still say one, but I think if there was a two, for me, the highest likelihood would probably be Carter Mazer.
Yeah, I think realistically it's one with Albert Johansson. And to finish my thought, too, about the Simon Edvinsson thing, he's not technically a rookie by Calder Trophy standards because of the fact that, well, two reasons, actually, and he fits both categories. You have a cumulative 25 games played in the NHL, which he has exactly 25 games played now, right. And also 6 games or more played in consecutive seasons, which he's also done, 9 and then 16, 9 plus 16 being 25. So by both categories, he is no longer a rookie. He is, though, functionally a rookie. He hasn't played a full NHL season, so like in our heads, we all still consider him a rookie because this will be his first true NHL season. Those first 2 are short stints. But yeah, I agree with you. I think realistically it's one in Albert Johansson. At the peak, at the height, if Carter Mazer and Marco Kasper show out and ball out and they prove that they deserve a roster spot, I think they have a good chance of making, an outside chance, I should say, not a good chance of making it as well. And I agree that Carter Mazer probably has a better chance than Marco Kasper just because of, like you said, organizational fit, the role he's going to have. He's going to be a middle or bottom 6 winger.
Mazer on the 4th line, and when he's called up, because his role going forward is probably middle 6 at best, probably more of a really good, 3rd liner type, that like gritty, grinded out type of player that's going to be, outside of the top half of your lineup anyway. Whereas, Kasper, they would want to shelter minutes for.
Yes, correct. Then the next one here, Scotty, is about goaltending. How's the goalie situation going to work out? Is Cossa blocked if he has an amazing camp? And also just wanted to say I love you guys and the show with everything in the world that is awful. I always look forward to watching you guys every night. Locked on Tigers, too. That is from American Dreaming. We both really appreciate it. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure you share the sentiment.
I do.
You just hate it when people say thank you for putting on good shows.
No, that's I say it all the time, but genuinely I'm forever grateful for this, I don't know, opportunity, we'll call it. Very, very, very cool. And have met and will continue to meet a lot of people. It's awesome to be genuinely a part of like people's routines throughout the day is the ultimate honor, I guess I'll call it.
The only downside is to do that, you have to talk to me for 30 minutes, 5 days a week.
That's the best part of my day, Bri.
Thanks, buddy. I wish I could say the same. But also
I understand.
Shared the sentiment to like the American Dreaming, of course. Thank you so much for listening to us every day. We're really grateful and happy that we could be a happy moment for you. And as far as your question goes about blocking Cossa, looking at the goalie situation, like Red Wings have proven they're capable of carrying 3 goalies. I don't think they'll have qualms with if Cossa comes into camp and he looks like your best option. Then I guess they would waive maybe like Husso or Lyon, right? But at the same time, I don't know if they would want to bring up Cossa to get every 3rd start, right? Like because you have 3 goalies, and obviously they'll just run whoever's hot. But I think they'd rather have this season anyways, Cossa in the AHL all season long to be the number 1 guy and get those reps and get those minutes. Get used to playing a lot of games in a single season rather than getting sporadic starts at the NHL level, splitting time with 2 other goalies at any given moment. So I guess you could consider that blocked. I mean, if he has an amazing camp and he's NHL ready, he's NHL ready, and there's no reason to not have him on the team. I'm not worried about Jack Campbell, by the way. Like, that's just not even on my radar. But I wouldn't consider it blocked, but more of just like they don't anticipate him being ready, but I guess that kind of deflects your question about if he shows up ready. I don't know. I just don't see that as a realistic situation. I don't know. I don't think he's going to come into camp and look like he's going to be a starting NHL goalie. And if he doesn't look like a starting NHL goalie, I don't think that they're going to want to have him on the NHL roster quite yet when he can be the starter in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, I'll be a lot more direct. There is a 0% chance he is on the NHL roster on opening night. I genuinely don't even care if he has an 1,000 save percentage in preseason. Like it's not happening. They have 3 goalies ahead of him in the depth chart right now. And I guess, I don't know, like, is that blocked? I guess by definition, maybe what I'm describing is blocked. But it's not like a detrimental thing.
It's not like a negative connotation to block,
right,
which is weird
exactly,
to say.
yeah, that's
but
not
like
a negative
it's just
thing. This is the plan. Like this is a guy that they have a lot riding on, and they want to be a part of the future.
Yeah,
and I fully expect him to be the number 1 starting goalie down in Grand Rapids for a majority of the season. Now, does he make his NHL debut at some point next year? I think that's at least on the table, right? I mean, we've seen between the 3 goalies we have, there's no guarantee that any of them are really like 1A caliber good. There's certainly no guarantee that all of them are healthy either, based on their track records. Like,
correct.
It would not shock me at all if he debuted at some point this season. But when it comes to like making the team out of camp, I'm serious. If he could have an 1,000 save percentage in preseason, that he is not making the team out of camp, just because they want a large sample size of him continuing to develop in the NHL. And that's not a bad thing. Again, there's nothing wrong with anything I just said. It's just, I think, how the team is set up this year. And to your point, if he was clearly the best goalie in camp, he would come up and play what, right? Like the only route for him getting legitimate playing time, if he was just so clearly the best goalie in the organization that they said, just screw it, and just played him 60 games next year. And I don't think there's very many people out there that think he's 60 games at the NHL level ready. That's all.
Correct. Scotty, got to head to a break. When we come back, we have 3 more questions for the people, and we'll answer them then. So stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on Game Time actually go down closer you get to first pitch, with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You save 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. And you save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. Save even more when choosing a section and let Game Time choose the seats. And you can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you really get a good view of what you're going to be looking at from where you're going to be sitting. And Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference as well. The purchase is also covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Good job, Scotty.
Dude, I was in a blender there. I could not find the button for the life of me. I was so rattled. Oh my goodness.
Your eyes were really big when you were trying to find it.
Dude, I freaked out. I was like, where the heck is it? That was crazy.
So we got 3 more comments, 3 more questions. I'm going to go to Twitter for the next one. This one comes from Decoy13. And simply they say, which player do we believe will take the biggest step this season and which player will regress the most? Scotty, who do you think will take the biggest step forward? Who do you think will regress?
I think the regress question is the most interesting there. So I'm going to bury the lead a little bit. I'll start with the player I expect to take the biggest step forward. I'm fully expecting to get hurt again. I'm fully anticipating and setting myself up for some pain here. I am slowly realizing every day I wake up and I think, am I starting to believe a lot more in DeBrincat being a legitimate goal scorer again? And I think that I am leaning that direction. And we talked about a lot how he was not nearly as bad as the fan base drew him out to be, and he was really good actually in a lot of other aspects in hockey. But everyone when we brought him in, and we talked about it when they brought him in, right? Like everyone in the fan base anticipated this dude to be a high-end goal scorer, and he just wasn't that. And so I expect Raymond to take somewhat of a step forward, but I don't know how much higher his ceiling is than what he showed in the second half of last season. I expect Mo to continue taking a step forward. I think Larkin is close to his ceiling. Kane, we know what he is. Vlad, we know what he is. Like like Berger, I'm not a huge believer that he's going to be like a 25 or 30 goal scorer or anything. Like you go down the list, I think the one for me is a rebound goal scoring season from Cat.
I like that as a good one. Is it a cop-out to say Simon Edvinsson?
No.
Is that a cop-out? No?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because it would technically be his first full season, but
no, not at all.
I expect that he's going to come in and really, really take hold on the second pair and be that, shut down second pair defenseman that this team has desperately needed for, since they've for the longest time, they really only had Moritz Seider. It's only been 3 seasons, but that feels like the longest time. Like, when was the last time they had a second pair even? So it's tough to even call back to.
Is that slander for the almost $8 million AAV Filip Hronek, the big contract that he just got? Because he was actually number 1 before Mo, and then after Mo slid down.
Yeah. That's a good reminder too. Like Phil Hronek, he's not worth the money he's got in my book, but he is. He was still
with the players
Quinn
that he's
Hughes,
on the ice with. He's gonna rack up some points.
He was a top 4 offensive defenseman for sure. That's a good call.
I love Phil, man.
Yeah, me too. We were frustrated with him defensively, but he would thrill you at times. He was a fun defenseman to watch. Frustrating,
that's what they called him.
I don't know if you can say that. I think Kessel has that locked down.
It was a joke. Yeah,
I think that's trademarked. So outside of Simon Edvinsson, because functionally a rookie, right? Like coming in, I expect him to take strides this year better than he looked in his stints in the previous year. If you want me to say a real one, I would say Moritz Seider. I think offensively has another gear in him that he could get, and I don't know how much of an opportunity he's going to get at 5-on-5 because the defense behind him still isn't that great. So he's still probably going to be taking some really difficult assignments. But I think with Gostisbergen, he'll get more looks on the power play, which will open him up for more offense as well. And I think he could get back into that 50-point range. I think that's very feasible for him. I think he has another gear. I'd like you to bring a pick. Regression, though? I don't ever want to predict regression. But I mean, if you're going to force me to say somebody I think overperformed, Cam Talbot, we've talked about it, another year older, coming from a team that faced the 4th fewest 5-on-5 shots in the NHL. Granted, again, still was 15th in the league in goals saved above expected, so he was still making saves above what he was facing. But at the same time, it's easy to accumulate that number when you face fewer shots as a whole. So I wouldn't expect him to have as crazy good save percentage as he did with LA. I don't know if that's so much regression as much as just coming to a defensively worse team. A team that defensively got better in the offseason, but is still worse than the LA Kings from last year. So I would say probably Cam Talbot. I don't know about anyone on the Red Wings who I want to come on here and be like, they're going to be worse next year. I don't want to.
I think Talbot's a really good one too, though. Just situationally and another year older and whatnot. I think if I had to pick someone else, I would pick one of Petrie or Sherratt, and that's just sheerly based on another year older. It happens to everybody at some point. Everybody falls off a cliff at some point given age. And those are guys that are going to be given a lot of responsibility, more responsibility than a perennial deep pushing playoff team would give either of them. And I feel like, again, another year older, and given the responsibility they're going to be handed, I think there's always a chance that they kind of fizzle out. But I'm not sure that's really regression either. We saw the Sherratt and Seider pair was horrible 2 years ago, and then they were really good last year. So is them just being bad again? If that happens, is that really regression? I guess technically, but they've been bad before. So
right.
I think that those are kind of candidates there. I don't know. Filip Zadina.
Free agent Filip Zadina, mind you.
Hey.
He bet on himself? I don't know. I'm not a Filip Zadina hater, so I don't.
Neither am I.
No. Another candidate for on the flip side of the Cam Talbot, I think Ville Husso could have a little bit of a bounce back year if he stays fully healthy. Because again, this is another year where the team is better defensively than the year prior, so I think that'll help him out as well. But not that I think he's going to be like a 930 save percentage, whatever. But
Yeah,
better,
you
above
lead that
900.
charge. I'm good back here.
Well, I mean, not a breakout year, but I think he'll be improved just simply by the team around him being improved.
But hard to not be, I guess.
Fair. Next one comes from Instagram. Yusuf Habib asks, is there any minor trades that can make this team better defensively? Any suggestions? Then Cody Ceci, ? First part of that, I'll answer. Yeah, probably. Do I have anyone in mind right now that I would target for a small trade that could make this team better defensively? No.
I also just don't think that you're really in a position to do that until you lock up the Mo and Razor contract. Really, like you need to know how much money you're playing with those type of trades, even if they are smaller, right? And they are kind of marginal and you're not, the money's about the same. Like every dollar matters when you're waiting for two massive contracts to be signed. So I think even that question, that sounds like a huge cop out, but like I feel like you're kind of in a position where you can't really make too many other moves until you lock those guys down.
Yeah, I mean, and the other thing too is like, any team, okay, Cody Ceci is the example, all right? And I looked a little bit into Cody Ceci because that was somebody named right side defenseman, 31 years old, has 1 year left, slightly over $3 million with the Edmonton Oilers. Top 4 minutes, but Corsi relative on the Oilers was really bad. They got a lot of, relative to the Oilers, because the Oilers stellar offensive team, so they didn't get a lot of defensive zone deployments, but they got a lot of defensive zone deployments relative to their teammates, but struggled in the defensive zone for the Oilers. And obviously defense isn't just defensemen. A lot of that has to be with how your team plays defense. We talked about that with the Red Wings forward core all season long, just being really bad at supporting their defenders and transitioning out of the zone. But his numbers did not reflect very well. He is a two-way defenseman, but wasn't very good in his own end, used a lot in his own end. I don't know. Cody Ceci, if you're trying to make an acquisition for Cody Ceci, who's a right side D-man, you need to create a roster spot to get him on this team. And right side D-men are really hard to come across, so they have a little bit higher value because of that. Not always, but they do carry. Everyone wants a right side D-man who can play top 4 minutes.
And which one of our defensemen would they want? Exactly.
Like it's about creating the cap space to fit another $3 million on here and clearing a roster spot to do so. So like, yeah, they could create minor trades to bring players in, but in order to bring players in, you have to move players out because you don't have the roster space and you don't have the money to take on too much more money without moving that equivalent money out, like they did when they signed Tarasenko. They had to move Fabry out to fit him. We talked about that in yesterday's episode, how this year the team's going to be pretty close to the cap until $18 million comes off next offseason and another 19 comes off the year after that. So like it'd be really hard it'd be hard to make the surgery work, as Steve Yzerman put it when talking about free agency. Final question, Scotty. This comes from Wigglewaff on YouTube. How many hockey pucks can you fit in your mouth at once?
One.
I think I could maybe get 2 in there. I got a big mouth.
I have a big mouth in the sense that I talk a lot and am loud. I think physically I have a pretty small mouth, actually. Maybe I just have messed up teeth too. Maybe that's more it.
That's cute. Good to know. I think I could probably, if I really needed to, take all my teeth out. I could definitely get like 2 in there.
Oh, well, thanks, dude. Yeah. Hey, if I had surgery to make my mouth open more, I could fit more in. Thanks, Sherlock. Yeah. No, I genuinely think I'm like at 1, which is like so lame. But like I think that's it.
Is it cool to fit more than 1 puck in your mouth? Like if it's lame to only have 1, does that mean it's cool to have more than 1?
Yeah.
Oh,
dude, I got a question once on Locked On Tigers. Somebody asked, of the 4 major American sports, which championship trophy would be the most uncomfortable to sit on? It's such an easy answer, to be completely honest.
I'm trying to remember. I know what the Lombardi Trophy looks like. I obviously know what the Stanley Cup looks like. The World Series pennant is like, or not the pennant, but it's like that, right?
The World Series trophy is a bunch of flags.
Oh, that's right. It's all the flags. So is it
easily the World Series trophy? It's not even close.
Yeah,
the basketball trophy's just a basketball. The football trophy, the
Yep.
Lombardi trophy is a basketball. The Stanley Cup is a cup, and the other one is 30 flags poking up out of a trophy.
Does that mean the Stanley Cup with its height and like bowl at the top would be the most comfortable to sit in?
Yeah, that's just like sitting on like a toilet.
Okay. All right.
I mean, it would. It's like, yeah.
Yep.
Go hockey, man. Most comfortable championship trophy to sit on. Bang.
Okay. We'll be back with new episodes next week. So stay tuned with that. Hopefully, Cider and Remy get signed at some point.
Please.
Hell, give me Berggren and Veleno, like just something.
I'm begging.
So stay tuned for that. Same time, same place. It's your team.
We ball
every day.
every day.